to Trinh, the one show, maybe the only show that tries to make sense out of the noise and give you the latest and greatest information you need to get a healthier life going here. With the man who's always living a healthy life, Dr. Trinh.
I'm not sure if I'm always living a healthy life there, but
oh, come on, you're the healthy guy here. You're the one that's always telling us how to live here. Don't tell me that you don't do as I say, not as I do. No.
There you go. You haven't seen me eating yet. You haven't seen the other Facebook groups I'm in where I post my my meal once in a while. So.
Oh, do you? Okay. All right. All right.
Nice. Are we? Let me see. Are we shared screen yet?
I think we have. We should be.
All right. Awesome. There you go. Yes, we are. We're good.
So welcome to everybody this morning here. Hey, we got a hot topic. Tell everybody. You're going to want to get everybody on the call this morning here because we're going to give you straight from the latest, ripped from the headlines. What is the latest about this Pfizer vaccine that's got everybody buzzing? It's got the market. Everybody's filled with hope. Hey, we don't have to quit wearing, give up wearing masks. We don't need to do anything. The vaccine's coming.
That's right. It's very interesting. So I do want to chat about the vaccine. Everyone here, I assume, has heard about the vaccine. And
here's what I heard. And you tell me if this is right or wrong.
Yeah.
So Pfizer, one of the big drug companies, came out with an announcement. I think the CEO made the announcement that in their initial, are they in, I don't know what phase they're in. Are they in the final phase of their trial? Phase three. Yes. That their preliminary results, or was it the final results? I don't even know if it was preliminary or final, but they were seeing upwards of 90% effectiveness in this vaccine that they put forth. That's a pretty phenomenal number.
Do you know how many patients participated in this study?
Have no idea. You're going to break it all down for us because all we heard was the headline, Pfizer vaccine 90% effective, coming soon, help is on the way.
Right. Do any of you guys know how many patients participate in this study? This is a phase 3. Alex says it sounds rushed.
Yeah, well, we're going to talk about that today too. But let's get through the basic details of what they're telling us and what you understand about it.
So this is a phase 3, and for those of you guys who don't know, the way we do clinical trials is in phases, and let me break down the different phases for you guys. So before they even start phase 1, we do preclinical studies, and preclinical studies are normally done on animals like rats or monkeys and mice and things of that sort, to see the response first in animals.
Okay.
And if the preclinical studies show results that were promising, and what they would do next is they would go to phase 1.
Phase 1.
Phase 1.
I picture like a big red light flashing, and then it's yellow. Phase 1, and then it's something.
Exactly.
And then phase 3, beep 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 beep. Yeah.
Exactly. Phase 1 is done and then phase 1 is where you start human trials. Humans participate in phase 1, 2, and 3. And phase 1 studies are normally done in healthy patients, and healthy means they're healthy. They don't have any significant health issues. And phase 1 is done mainly to look for safety, where you're measuring blood tests and EKGs, and you're monitoring these healthy patients who are given these medications. Vaccinations or whatever meds is being studied, right, including vaccinations. So you're looking at healthy patients in phase 1, and you're making sure that there's no glaring, obvious side effects. You're making sure in phase 1 that nobody drops dead, nobody grows a third eye or a tail, right? Just glaring.
And who are these people? Are they just people that are recruited off of the internet or volunteers?
Volunteers, 100% volunteers, right? There are volunteers in phase 1, healthy healthy patients. And so if the study in phase 1 shows, that it's safe, relatively safe, and there's no glaring safety issue, then you move to phase 2. And phase 2, you continue to look for safety information, safety data, things of that sort. But oftentimes in phase 2 is where we look at different dosages, right? What is the best dosage that helps, for this condition? Is it 100 milligram, 500 milligram, 10 milligram, 1,000 milligrams? So often in phase 2, you have several arms of the study, and you're looking at different dosages to figure out, what works best. Okay. And you continue to look for safety and monitor for safety.
And how do they do that? How do they see them every week? Do they just ask them to report back conditions?
Yes, both. So each clinical trial has a different algorithm. You can be seen often or not often. That depends on the clinical trial. It's all different. And it depends on the medication that's being studied. But phase 2, we recruit more patients than phase 1. So phase 2 could be, up to a few hundred often, where more patients are involved. And again, you look at safety and dosing. And so assuming that the data in phase 2 is positive, it works, right? And they figure out which dose is more effective. Then you take it to phase 3. Phase 3 is the final phase before it goes to FDA.
Okay. And what's the
assuming it passes phase 3?
What's the purpose of phase 3? To expand the study group, to
expand
give it one
the
more
study.
shot? Right.
Yes. Phase 3 is where they expand the study to from hundreds of patients to thousands of patients in phase 3. And they take what they've learned from phase 2, right? And maybe they focus on the one dose that works the best, right? Or the 2 dose that works the best. They focus on what they learned from phase 2, and they expand it to thousands of patients, right? Hundreds of patients in phase 3. And they continue to monitor for safety. They continue to monitor for side effects and things of that sort. But in phase 3, you really want to know if it works or not with that. So Alex has a question: how much time between phases? And what determines going into the next phase? So what determines going to next phase is it safe and does it work? Those are the 2 questions that get answered. Is it safe and does it work? And if it fails at one of those questions, then typically they stop, right? And they don't move on to the next phase. And so in real life, taking a medication from a scientist's brain to FDA approval, right? From somebody's, from a scientist's brain thinking about the medicines to developing it to FDA approval. In real life, it takes 10 to 12 years to get something approved.
Whoa. You caught my time. I'm trying to handle 14 things at once here, and you said 10 to 12 years. We got 10 days. We got 10 weeks. We don't have 10 to 12 years.
That's right. And that's what normally happens to get a medication approved. From somebody thinking about it to FDA approval, 10 to 12 years, most of the time. That's the typical time frame. So in between phases, each phase can take, 2 to 3 years, Alex. So you take 2 to 3 years for phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and you're at 10 to 12 years.
And who determines that? Is that prescribed by law? Is that the FDA's recommended? Is that just what good science dictates? So who comes up with that timetable, that time frame?
It depends on the medication being studied and the health conditions being studied. But normally, it takes time to recruit patients. And it takes months to recruit the patients you need. And after they're recruited and they enroll, then they got to go through that process of taking that medication for, a year or 2 years, whatever that time span is. and that's why it takes at least 2-3 years for a phase to be completed. And I'm talking in generalizations, right? I'm talking in generalizations because there's always variations to this. But that's how we get up to our 10 to 12 years is because it's like 3 years between phases is what we know. And then you need time to analyze the data. In between phases, you need time to analyze the data to determine if it worked or if it didn't work. Right? Let me give you an example.
Okay.
Alzheimer's.
Yes.
Right? Do you know when the last Alzheimer's medication was approved? Does anyone know when the last Alzheimer's medication was approved?
I didn't even know there have been any approved. I didn't know that there have been any even out there.
Yeah, so there's 4 medications for Alzheimer's. The last novel or new medication that was approved was in 2003.
2003? And how many years did it take to get there?
Right, Namenda was the name of the last Alzheimer's med that has been approved.
And how long did that go through the 3 phases? What was the timetable on that one?
It took quite a while to go through 3 phases. But the question is, why haven't we had anything from 2003 to 2020?
No ideas. Nobody's come up with any good ideas.
Why haven't you? So we have had ideas. We've had hundreds of ideas, right? We've had hundreds of different medications that have gone through the process. So from 2003 to 2020, 17 years, nothing's been approved for Alzheimer's. Nothing new has been approved, right? For Alzheimer's. And here's why. They've had hundreds of compounds that's been tested through our clinical trials. Nothing has been approved because these compounds, somewhere along phase 1, 2, or 3, these compounds die. They fail. So they have never progressed past phase 3.
That's a pretty high failure rate. What is the normal failure rate for new ideas? Is it by the time it gets to phase 1, have they already got a 50% chance or a 60%?
Yes. So it's like a funnel and it dwindles.
Yeah, sure.
So there's a lot at the base of the funnel. And as you go up from phase 1, right, a big group of it will fail. Then you go up to phase 2, a big group of meds will fail. And at phase 3, a whole bunch of meds will fail. So it's like a big funnel where at the end of phase 3, you only have a trickle of medications that make it.
Makes sense. I mean, you're running the gauntlet. People are trying to poke at it from every angle to make sure that it's safe. They don't want to get sued. They don't want to hurt people. The government wants to make sure. That's why we have an FDA, or Food and Drug, because they want to make sure this is safe and sound.
And these clinical trials are double-blinded. Typically, when you run a true medication clinical trial or vaccine trial, it's double-blinded.
What does that mean? I hear that all the time.
What does double-blind mean? You guys know what double-blind mean, right? Double-blind means the patient is blinded to whether they are receiving the true medication or a placebo, like a sugar pill, right?
Right.
So the patient is blinded to it. The patient doesn't know which medication they're taking, the real thing or the placebo.
And by double blind, you mean also, maybe I'm wrong here, not only doesn't the patient know whether I got the placebo or the tested drug, but the researcher doesn't know. He's blind too. He or she's blind too, because they don't want to influence and say, aren't you feeling better? Come on, you should be feeling better. Yeah.
Absolutely correct. Yes. So the researcher is also blind. Absolutely correct. So the doctor on the other end doesn't know which one, if the patient's getting the real thing. So that's why it's called double blind, blinded from both ends. Right. And the reason we do that is to take away bias.
Yeah, obviously. We don't want to be, hey, I think I got the real drug. I think I'm feeling better, or I think I'm feeling worse. Or the doctor saying, come on now, you think about that again, Mr. Roberts. You must be feeling better. Aren't you? Wink, wink. You got the real one. Come on.
That's right. So those are the studies that are really valid, guys. There are other studies. There's open label studies. There's observational studies. There's meta-analysis studies. There's clinical trials come in all types of forms. But when we do a medication or a vaccination clinical study, it's typically a double-blinded study, which is the highest standard of studies.
All right, so now you're leading into Alex's original question here. You've set us up. Takes 10 to 12 years, slow process, very careful about how they do it, long periods of time. Now we're in Operation Warp Speed. And I don't say that kiddingly, because I think the country wants us to be in warp speed, but we're trying to do this in record time.
Right.
How are we cutting the time down?
That's a good question. The question is, are they cutting red tape?
Right.
That should not be there, or are they cutting essential steps and taking shortcuts, right?
Exactly.
So that's vetted out at the FDA level. When these pharma companies come to present and do their studies with the vaccinations. Here's the interesting thing about this particular Pfizer study with the vaccination. The interesting thing is that this study uses mRNA, and what that is that it's genetic material that's called an mRNA that's encased in tiny lipid particles, which shuttles or transports this genetic materials into our cells. This mRNA strategy is an entirely new class of vaccinations that's never been done before.
Really?
Oh yeah.
So walk through that again. Make sure I understand this, everybody. So normally, what kinds of, I know it varies by drug, but in general, what would you have expected to see, and what are they trying now? Compare those to what they thought they were going to do and what they are doing.
Right. So the coronavirus is and you've seen pictures of it on Facebook. It's a round ball, right, with little spikes on it.
Yeah, I've seen that.
You guys have seen that, right? With little spikes on it. What they have done is they have taken part of the spike. They've looked at the protein in these spikes. So they've taken a spike and they looked at the genetic material, which is called mRNA. They look at the genetic material that makes the spike, that produces the protein of the spike.
Okay.
And this is an entirely new class of ways on how to make vaccinations. And so they're introducing the genetic material that makes the spike protein, or parts of the spike protein, straight into your cells. And they're plugging it into your cells' protein making machinery, factory, right? So every cell has a factory that makes protein. It's a protein factory, right?
Yeah, right.
And normally the cells make the protein based on the DNA inside the nucleus of that cell, right? Your DNA. Your genetic material. They take that genetic material, they put it through the protein factory called mRNA, which is so I'm getting deep into the weeds here, right?
Yeah, right.
Into the science weeds.
But they're going right to your genetic makeup of your cells. They're trying to put that in there as if nature itself had put this genome into your body that will give you the proper antidote, antibody, anti something here.
That's right. They are inserting the genetic material itself of the spike protein that's on COVID straight into the cell, being transported through a little lipid coating that takes the genetic material into the cell, and then it plugs right into your cell's protein making factory, and that protein making factory makes the protein.
I see. So we're just we're gonna program it to make vaccine.
Right. That's right. It makes the protein of the spike protein, of the little spikes on coronavirus, And once it makes the protein, it stimulates your body to make the antibodies against the protein. Does that make sense? Your own cells is making the factory, is making the proteins of the spike protein, which stimulates your immune system now to see that spike protein and create the antibodies against
So
it.
they're tricking your body. They're teaching, not tricking. They're teaching your body
Teaching.
how to make at a
Yeah.
cell level, how to make the
Yes. We're
gene.
giving the blueprint. We're giving the blueprint
Right.
directly to the cell, right? And we're actually giving, the mRNA, the genetic material. And so the cells make all these spike proteins. And as it makes spike proteins, your immune system sees it and makes the antibodies for the vaccine. So
Okay. Now
that's the
that's never been
strategy.
tried before. How did they come up? So I'm really worried or wondering now. Not only are they
Right.
trying to fight a novel new virus that we haven't seen
Yeah.
before, that's tough enough, and find out what makes your body do it, but they're doing it in a new way. What would have been the old way? What did they do with swine flu or other flus that
The old
Asian
way,
flu?
they would inject the protein itself, parts of the protein itself into your body, and then your immune system recognizes it. And so it's an injection of that protein from the, let's say, the flu virus, right? They take
Right.
part of the flu virus and they inject it into your body, and the immune system see that part of the flu virus and builds immunity to it, makes antibodies to it,
Right.
right? So that's the old way. The new way is basically they are injecting the genetic material. Yes, they are injecting the genetic material into the cell, into your cell's factory, so that the factory can now make the protein itself. So it's a little bit different, right? You can inject the.
I'm only trying to I wish I could mimic Alex's comment here. I think I'm reading it correctly. He has these two big wide eyes, and they're like, "What?" I mean, this is a little mind-boggling. So, in the midst of trying to tackle a new virus, they're not just trying to isolate it and send it into your body so your body can build up some natural antibodies and kick in like it would with so many other diseases. We'll put a little bit in your body in some form, whether the live disease or the dead disease, and your body will recognize it and start fighting it. And
Right.
hopefully that'll kick in. I can't even get my eyes this wide here this morning here. And now we're doing it. It sounds like a better way. We're finding the genetic material for the body. We're sending it right to them and saying, here, you don't have to figure out how to make a
Right.
antibody for this. We're going to give it to you. Here's the blueprint. Start cranking it out. But so it seems like a better way, but it seems like you're trying to do two things at once. You're trying to come up with a new delivery system and a new vaccine. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. Now the mRNA vaccines has been studied over the last 10 years, last decade or so.
Okay.
It's just that a vaccine has actually never been made, but it's been studied by pharma. But this is the first time that they're giving the green light to actually make the vaccine using mRNA.
And why did they choose to go this route? Is it more effective? Do you get higher, like Pfizer's touting they're getting 90% or more? Maybe it's even more, but it's
Yeah,
upwards of
that's
90%.
I'm not sure. I'm thinking that maybe this is a faster method to making the vaccination and to stimulating your immune system to create the antibodies. Moderna is doing the same thing. Moderna is another pharma.
Yeah.
So there's there's a number of mRNA vaccines being developed here.
All right, let's
But it
back up
is
for 1 second here.
right.
All right, so we've got a new technique to deliver a
Yes.
vaccine that's never been tried before, and a new novel virus that's we're trying to come up and combat. How
Yes.
many? I still can't get I still can't get my head around this. How many phase 3 studies, are going on around the world for different drugs? dozens, hundreds, two?
For any drug, different drugs?
No, for this drug. How many people?
Oh,
I know
for the
everybody's trying to.
vaccine?
It's the mother lode. If they can,
Yeah.
whoever gets there first, going to be
There's
gazillions of
around
dollars.
10. There's around 10 phase 3, I believe, somewhere around there, going on right now with COVID vaccinations.
Because you
So
read about, and that's in this country, but you read about they've supposedly the Chinese are already trying it on some of their party officials. Supposedly that same one was being used in some other country, Turkey or some other place, and then they just recently cut back and said, no, we don't want to help the Chinese because they created this thing. I'm hearing all this stuff, confusion floating around here. Are other countries closer than we are, same as we are, trying something different than we are? What are they doing around the world?
yeah, well, they're the Chinese obviously are developing vaccines. The U.S. is developing vaccines.
The British, I know the British are working.
Yeah, they're so. I think the Russians are already giving their vaccines. Didn't Putin get a shot or something?
Putin got a shot of something here. I don't know if that was for show or for real, but
maybe that's why he's so muscular, right? I've seen his muscular pictures on Facebook with that.
I think that's why he's so evil. It's Dr. Evil. They're putting Dr. Evil genes in him. That could be another thing.
So Pfizer's vaccine, this latest vaccine, they had 43,000 patients enroll in it. 43,000 patients.
Wow.
Enroll, and so half of those patients are taking the real shots, and the other half the real vaccinations, and the other half are doing placebo vaccinations. The other thing you should know about this vaccinations is that there's 2 shots, not 1.
Yeah. Well, we'll get it. We'll get into the details. I'm just still trying to wrap my head around how they're doing this, how quickly they're doing it. And somebody said on here, Alex says, again, we're all just hearing. We don't know. You're in the science of it. We're just in the rumor mill. Alex says, I've heard other countries have had injuries due to testing vaccines.
Yeah, so there's, that's what they monitor for. They monitor for side effects. They monitor for death. They monitor, to see if something weird happens to you, or if your liver shuts down or your kidney shuts down. And there are vaccines where they have to stop when somebody dies or something bad happens to someone and analyze the data to see if this was caused by the vaccine or if it was caused by something different.
Now, you remind me the drug company that did stop the testing.
AstraZeneca? Was it AstraZeneca? I think it was.
Somebody stopped it right before the election, and of course the president went, "Oh my goodness, he wanted the good news," and they stopped their trial because they had some side effects.
Yeah, and there have been companies that have stopped and then restarted after they analyzed the data, and these are sometimes purposeful stops, stops that are done on purpose to analyze data midway. So that they analyze safety data. Let's stop and look. And so oftentimes it's purposeful as well.
Right.
With that.
Okay, so we've got this one company. Really, really sounds like good news. Are you buying it? Does it sound good to you? Have you seen the study? Is there a link to it? Can we go look at it? Or is it secret?
I think there's a link of the specific study. We don't know the details yet, because again, this study is not complete. This is
just sort of, we're just telling you we're getting close and we're seeing good results.
Yeah, this is like an initial analysis,
okay.
Right? It's not a complete analysis yet. So this is an analysis in 94 COVID infected patients who were part of the study. So what they do is they give everyone the vaccinations, whether you're getting a placebo or the real thing. And in order to get the vaccinations, you need to be, healthy, and you need to have never had COVID.
Right.
And then they wait until these 43,000 patients, they wait until people start popping up and getting COVID infections, right, in these 43,000 patients. And so the analysis was done on 94 patients. Of 43,000 patients, 94 patients had COVID. Right? And so the question is, how did they determine, that it was 90% successful,
Right.
right? How did they determine that? Um, and so,
Don't they just go count them and they go, let's see, 94, I should have 80 some here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Who's feeling better? I am.
so, so I don't know the specific details. They didn't tell us how they determined that it was 94% successful,
Mhm.
but I'm guessing, and this is an assumption on my part. I'm guessing that to determine that it was 94% successful, they probably looked and see of these 94, to determine that it was 90% successful, they probably took a peek and looked at these 94 patients to determine how many of them were in the placebo arm
Right.
versus how many of them actually had the real vaccination. And if most of the patients who were infected were on the placebo arm compared to the vaccinated arm, then you can say that if you were vaccinated, you were at much lower risk of getting infected.
But
Right? Do you kind of see?
here's what confuses me. Nobody's
Right.
asked this question, so maybe it's just me. First of all, Alex and a couple others aren't buying it. They're very doubtful. Very doubtful. We're going to get into the doubts in a moment here, and then we'll get into the drug and how you get it. What if this is the answer or something
Right.
like it is the answer? We'll go through all those details, how long it takes to produce it. We'll get into all that in the last 10, 15 minutes here.
Yeah.
I'm still deep in the weeds here. So we got this drug, 90% effective. They gave it to 94 COVID patients, and 94% of them felt better. I'm confused. Is this a feel better drug that when
No,
you,
no, no.
or is
The
this a preventative drug?
the 94 patients who were infected,
Yeah.
they were part of the study. They've already had their vaccinations, whether it was a placebo or the real shot, right? So these 94 came out of the 43,000 patients that were part of this study. Does that make sense?
No, I'm lost here again. So
No.
the 94 people actually had COVID in this
Yes,
test.
yes. These were the patients who were enrolled in the vaccinations.
Right.
So they have received their vaccinations. After you get your vaccinations, what we do is we wait.
Oh, I see. I see. Okay. Okay. I see. So 40 some thousand people get the vaccination, and
Uh-huh.
94 of them developed COVID after
Yes,
they got the vaccination. They
yes,
didn't
yes, yes,
have it
yes,
going in, they got it. So
yes,
94 still got it, but
yes.
40,000 and 30 some thousand didn't get it.
So far.
Now,
So,
but
so
okay.
I don't
So
know if that's how they concluded that.
yeah.
I don't know if that's how they concluded that because what you would need to do is you would need to look at the 94, and of that 94, how many of them got placebo
Yeah.
versus the real thing,
Right. Because some of them just were going to get it anyway.
right?
And
No,
how many? What would the suspected infection rate be in that population? Because if I picked populations in high dense areas or in high risk population groups, I'd expect to get a certain number of people that would be sick at the end of this study, that the vaccination wouldn't help or wouldn't help at all
right.
or would only help you. But if I picked a different group, I might expect 94 would be the number I'd come up with anyway, and the vaccine might be doing
So,
nothing.
so that is information that we don't know, right? We need to do what's called subgroup analysis, taking these 43,000 patients and breaking them down to different categories. Are they young? Are they old?
Yeah,
Were
right.
they healthy? Did they have diabetes? Were they obese? Were they immune compromised? So that information is not available to us. What is available is that of that 43,000, 94 developed COVID, and I'm sure they looked at that 94 probably to
Right.
see
Who were
to
they?
do a sneak peek and see were the majority of these patients, the 94, were they in the placebo group where they literally basically didn't get a vaccination, or were they in, the vaccination group where they got the real vaccination,
All right.
right? And if
So
you look at the data,
could it
yeah,
be that this Here's another in the weeds question. So they look at the data in the subgroups and they say, you know what, this really works, but only for young people. This really works, but only for old people. This really works, but only for Irishmen. You know, I mean, is there some, they look at this thing and they say, yeah, I don't know if the general population is going to see 90%, but boy, if you're in this one particular kind of group, boy, you're really, really going to benefit.
So that's a question I have for Pfizer, because I don't have that information. So here are the questions we should be asking.
Okay, get your pencils out here, because we're gonna start write your congressman here and ask him these questions.
Right, these are the questions we should be asking Pfizer, and that information we don't have yet. The first question I would ask is, how long is this vaccine going to protect me?
How long is it going to protect me? Once my little body starts cranking out these little genomes, does it do it forever? Does it do it for a month or 6 months? How long does it do this?
Yeah, is this going to be like the flu shot where I have to get it once a year? Or is it going to be like a tetanus shot where I have to get it every 10 years? Or is it going to be like an MMR where you get it as a baby and you don't get it, later on in life?
Measles, mumps, rubella, right? One shot and you're done.
Exactly. Hi, Aaron. Aaron's here. And there's a bunch of folks. Hey, Zach, good to see you again. So how long is this vaccine going to protect me? That's question number one.
Okay.
Right? Because it's important to know. Because first of all, this vaccine isn't one shot, guys. It's 2 shots. You have to get it 3 weeks apart. You have to get the initial shot, and then you have to get a booster shot.
Why? Why do I have to do 2 shots for this one here?
Because apparently the second shot, the second booster shots, kind of cranks up the engine even more.
Right. Okay.
Right.
So it's a 2-shot process. Might be forever. Might be what?
Yeah, kind of like hepatitis B. Hepatitis B is a 3-shot process.
Ooh.
Right. You get the first shot, and then a month later you get a second shot, and then 6 months later you get the third shot. Right. Hepatitis B is a 3-month shot.
All right. Now, normally my first impulse is who cares, but suddenly I realize we all should care, because the other question that I hope you're going to address is how fast does this get there? And if, let's say, magically it was available January 1st, I don't think it's going to be, but let's say it was, okay? And I say that not because I'm a scientist, just because nobody seems to think it's that fast. And you're going to answer that for us. But going back, I've done all my qualifications to my answer here. Right. Let's say that it is a 2-shot process. That means I got to wait a month. So automatically, from whenever it's available and I take my shot, I still got another month to wait, or maybe 2 for it to kick in. Does it kick in 20 seconds after it shoots me, or does it take 2 weeks on top of the second shot to kick in?
So
talk about the timetable.
So I think it's going to kick in, and I don't have all the details yet, but the reason we give you 2 shots is because the majority of it will kick in after the second shot, the majority of the protection with it. Good morning, Christian. Good morning, Dan. So the majority of it will be the majority of protection probably after your second shot, when it boosts up really the antibody levels. The most of the protection, where they're looking at antibody levels, I believe, is after the second shot.
So so talk about the timetable now. Let's say, let's start with, when does phase 3 wrap up? When is Pfizer going to announce the final things? Did they give us any hint of that? Is it a month away, a day away, a week away?
So they are at the FDA's office chatting right now to get early approval from the FDA. So, the COVID emergency approval with that. Vicky says, is there any dude effects?
Yeah, I saw that. I laughed that she corrected
herself. So Vicky, I've had the shot and I'm like a dude now, right?
That's right.
I'm like a dude now. And so yes, Paul can be a great dude as well.
That's
after
right.
He gets the
Even
shot.
I can become a dude. Or she could become a dudette. She would be a dudette.
Or dudette. Yeah, dudette with that. So the second question I have for Pfizer is this. Is the vaccine going to protect the most vulnerable patients? Right? Is it going to protect the elderly in your 70s and 80s? Or is it just going to protect, the kids and the
Yeah, because
teenager.
you're telling your gene, your little cell gene factory to make this. Maybe my little cell gene factory's on
Right,
overtime. Maybe it's not functioning very well here. Little machine's breaking down because I'm old.
right. Because Pfizer didn't tell us, they didn't disclose what percentage of the 43,000 volunteers are in the groups that are vulnerable,
Mhm.
right? They didn't necessarily disclose yet. I'm sure they will, but they didn't necessarily disclose in this initial announcement of success whether most, whether it's going to help in those over 65 years old, or is
Right.
it going to help, if you're in your 20s. So we want a vaccine that's going to help the most vulnerable, right? It's pretty obvious. We want the
Okay.
vaccine that's going to help our
So you want
grandmas,
to
our
first question
grandpas.
is how long does it last, and does it help everybody equally or just the healthy?
Exactly. Is it going to help everyone, especially the most vulnerable? That's question number two.
Okay.
Question number three is this: how can you roll out, let's say it gets approved today,
Right.
what is the logistics to get it to 350
Oh,
million Americans?
never have we ever done this in the history of humankind? Have we ever
Or the
vaccinated that many
Canadians,
people?
right? Yeah. What is the logistics? And it's interesting because this vaccine needs to be super cooled in dry ice 100 degree below negative 100 degrees
Oh my goodness. So
Fahrenheit.
you can't just they can't just ship it to CVS and they pull it out to the freezer.
It needs to be negative 100 degrees to preserve the genetic material, the mRNA of the vaccine. It needs to be stored in negative 100 degree Fahrenheit. And you look around, and I don't see CVS having, anything that's negative 100 degrees, or Walgreens, or even the doctor's office.
They might go
Doctor's
buy
office
these things,
don't
but
have.
I don't even know. Now, and even worse,
Yeah.
the standard answer has been, how are we going to roll it out? We're going to use the military. We're going to mobilize the army, and the army is going to set up field hospitals and tents everywhere. They know how to mobilize and react to things, and they've got the logistical know-how to have trucks rolling everywhere and have shipments arrive and do all that. They're good at these things. I don't know if that's true or not. It seems
Right.
like some sense to it, but the military doesn't have uh, cryogenic chambers. They don't have, I don't know, whatever, massively cold storage facilities.
Or they do and they don't tell
Well,
us.
yeah, right. That's how
Right?
they
They
fight the
probably have their
zombie
laser
apocalypse.
system, right? They can probably shoot down, satellites from space. We just don't know what the military has, right?
Ah,
So yeah, I'm going Area 51 here. I'm
all
going
right.
Area 51.
But it's true, so we're talking about a massive rollout, and this thing's a little touchy. It doesn't just sit at room temperature, and you can get it, particularly in hard affected areas. Let's say rural areas. I have a lot of cousins that live in rural Minnesota. There are a few hospitals in those areas. It may be something we can roll out in Los Angeles and New York from
Right.
central distribution points. But how do you get to the heartland?
Yes, yes. So that's all logistical issues. So getting something approved is one thing. Getting that something approved to 350 million Americans is another thing. And then there's Canadians and Europeans
No,
and
we're not helping any of those people. It's just an
we
American
don't care
drug.
about Alex.
America
Alex is
first.
Canadian. Alex is Canadian. So Alex will mail you a shot,
Sorry,
right?
you're in too. We'll keep the
Yeah.
Canadians. But and somebody asked also. Dan wants to know: is Moderna doing the same thing? We just quickly are
Yes,
they on the
Dan, the
same?
answer is yes. Moderna's platform is also mRNA,
Which means it's
meaning,
going to send it into the cell, the little.
yeah, they're going to shoot the genetic material into the cell.
Anybody
Uh,
not using this new revolutionary genetic technique?
oh,
Anybody just going old school?
I'm sure there's farmer not using it. There's different types. Aaron's says, why so cold?
Right.
Because the genetic material, Aaron, the genetic material breaks down at higher temperatures. The mRNA breaks down at higher temperatures, and so to preserve the vaccine, it needs to be in that temperature.
All
With
right. We
that.
got 5 minutes left here before we got a break here.
All right.
I think it's an exciting breakthrough, But when would we expect logically, not politically, when would we expect logically that the FDA would say go? If the FDA says go, let's start with that. From that moment, how long does it take to produce, to distribute, and to start vaccinating?
So I don't know for sure. None of us know when the FDA will say yes to Pfizer.
Right.
But from what I've read, it's just a matter of weeks.
Okay.
Weeks.
But, all right. So let's say by the end of the year, we'll give them. We'll be generous. By the end of the year, they say go, and maybe some others start coming out too. Moderna or others start saying, "Hey, we got one too." And so somewhere around the end of the year, we're going to start seeing apparently some vaccines approved for use. We still got to make it. We got to distribute it, and we got to give it to everybody. What would the typical time? Is this weeks, months, years?
Yeah, so it depends on what type of infrastructure is in place. It depends on if you have, thousands of, refrigerators under 100 degrees in place and ready to go to ship out to everywhere that you want to.
So we might have the drug, but we might not have the refrigeration in place.
Yeah, we need the refrigeration. We need all that infrastructure in process. The good news is this. The good news is companies like Pfizer have already anticipated this.
Yeah, right.
I mean, they thought about how to deliver all this, right? Because they're large and they have the money. So they've thought about this out already. That's the good news. I don't know the delivery system, but it, maybe the first few thousand shots can be given out, in December, perhaps. But the bulk of America probably won't get it until 2021, obviously.
Important people will get it before we will. Is that an assumption? The government leaders, rich people, critical generals, they're going to get it first, and then it's going to work its way down to us mere peasants here.
So who's going to get it first? Democrats or Republicans?
Depends on how the thing goes here.
I'm sorry, I don't want to bring that up.
Oh boy, you're going to open up a thing. I don't look at it so much as that. I just think, truthfully, and maybe I'm just being so cynical today, that it's going to be government officials, it's going to be leaders of business, it's going to be people that we value as a society more. We got to keep them going. Old Paul, he can wait, but we got to give Dr. Trinh a copy here.
Yeah. Don't worry, Paul. I'm going to share my shot with you.
Good.
So maybe I'll get half the dose and Paul will get the other half. And maybe we'll do it live on one of these, one of our Thursday mornings, we'll do a shot live or something with that.
But again, you dodged the question, and I understand why, because nobody's ever done this before. Would we expect the production? I know they're ramping up production early. They're going to do everything in warp speed. Partly because that's what the president was pushing, and partly because that's what the country's pushing. We're all pushing. The world's pushing. I would think this would take months. I've seen things. Dr. Fauci said this could go on the rest of the year. Ouch! We don't want to hear that.
Yes. It's going to take months to deliver it to the bulk of America. I'm assuming that the first group that would get it would be frontline medical workers, hospital workers, nurses and doctors working in the ER. And that's my assumption. I don't know if that's a fact.
Think radio communication people who are on the show, podcasters, they forget about doctors. They need to be number one on the list here.
That's right, especially OC talk radio hosts.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
They definitely need to be on the list with that. And so those are at least 3 questions you should ask Pfizer, which we don't have answers to.
And on a future show, as we get closer, not today so much, but I really worry, we'll go back to Alex's first questions here. All right, so we raced it through. Record, we got a new way to deliver it. I didn't know that. A record, give you the genome material right away. We're somehow going to figure out how to manufacture this in rapid things because there's money to be made, and we're going to distribute it faster than anything's ever been distributed. We're going to use the military. They're going to have secret little refrigerators. Everything's going to get figured out. It's all no problems along the way. Wonderful days are ahead here. How many people are going to say, I'm not taking it?
Have you seen my Facebook?
Yeah.
Paul, have you seen the question I asked on Facebook a few days ago?
I did. That's why I'm asking this. Yeah.
Yeah, I asked. So let me look here. On my Facebook, I asked the question, how many of you guys would get the shot? And I didn't count the answers. I did count the answers, but I thought it was about 50-50 maybe.
Yeah,
50-50.
small percentage of people out there are going to say, "Give it to me right away," because I'm desperate. Awful lot, and I trust science, and I trust the government, and I trust Pfizer, and I trust the military, and I trust refrigeration. An awful lot of people are going to say, "I don't trust any of this." Alex said at the beginning, "I think they're rushing it." Alex still says, "I'm still very suspicious." Blah blah blah. You know, we're just I'm not sure, Alex. I'm my first impulse is give it to me. I'll take it. I'll take anything.
Yeah.
And then my second impulse is I don't know.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is once it gets approved and we can actually look at the details of the data, we can see once there's transparency and we can see the age groups and the patient types and whether they had diabetes or whether they were young. It'd be nice to break down that information, guys, to see, you know, if the vaccine works and which age group it works in and who should get it most. I'm assuming, Dan, that preference will go for the older populations that we need to protect. That's my assumption. And so Vicky, I'm gonna wait till Vicky Sofa gets her shot first and see what happens.
Because she wants to know will we continue to study for effectiveness? I would suspect there'll be a study of the results. Won't there be somebody that will give it to 300 million people and will find out, oops, didn't work as well, or wow, this really works like we thought it would. Hooray! Nobody gets sick.
Yeah. So I will definitely be looking at the data. I'll see what Dr. Fauci says, right?
He's still around if he doesn't get fired by then. Sorry, no political comment. All right, last quick question. How do people find out about this Pfizer study? Where do they go look for? Where are you looking for it?
There are, I'm going to post later. I have to look up the specific study where it was posted.
Please do, because I think that would help. You have an engaged audience, and I think they might take a crack at looking at it.
I'll look at what we have so far. We don't have all the data, which is why I have a lot of questions still. Right. But it's a good start. So that's it gives hope, right?
Well, hope is all we're looking for on a cold November morning here. Right. Hope after a lot of dire predictions about dark winters ahead. But that doesn't mean that we're still not going to get a lot of people sick before then. And that's what I fear. Yes.
We still, we can't, I'm not banking everything on the vaccination. We got to do our social distancing, wear our mask, do the right things, and the vaccination will be the cherry.
Because that's my fear, is that you're seeing people already pull back, the government pull back, the politicians pull back and say, hey, you know what? We've given up trying to tell people wear masks. Everybody's obstinate. They're fighting it. They do and they don't. And all people want to hear is the vaccine's coming. And then, in the meantime, we're still going to infect a ton of people that we didn't have to.
I read this morning that there was a state, I don't know which state it was, where the governor just mandated masks for the entire state.
Wow. I think there's a couple looking at that, actually.
Yeah. I read that there.
And not necessarily all Democratic state either. Yeah.
Yes. Build up your immune system. That's right, Christian. Build up your immune system. Keto supplements, right? Or build up your dude.
I need my dude effects.
Yeah, we're going to build up our dude. Yes, that's what we're going to do.
All right, thanks, dude. I appreciate this was very informative. I didn't know there's a new delivery way and a drug. Not only I knew there's drug coming, I didn't know what kind of questions we should be asking. I look forward to you putting a link up so we can track that down too. Thank you.
I'll find that link.
Okay. All right. Next week, we're going to, and we've got somebody, I don't know if we're going to tease it yet, but we've got somebody from, we think, California.
We don't know yet. Yeah, we don't know yet. We got some guests next week.
We got some good guests coming up here. So, all right. All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening. And stick in there. We got a lot more shows this morning here on OC Talk Radio. Not on the Facebook channel, but through our site, octalkradio.biz.